What's up everyone, I'm Twisted. LeBlanc's update is finally here, which means brand new voice lines for our favorite deceiver. Some of these are very interesting, so make sure you watch the video until the end.
I remember when Noxus was a curse against those who dwelt beyond the sun's light. Typical Targonian hubris.
Starting off with this very interesting line, where LeBlanc mentions Noxus was a derogatory term used by Targonians for people who dwelt beyond the sun's light. This was also mentioned in the voice lines of the Sanuzol skin. There, he mentions that the Rakor shunned them as people of the darkness, calling them Noxus. For now, we don't really know what this means, besides the fact that there's some history between the Noxus and the Rakor. The Noxus were people of the darkness, and the word Nox in Latin means night or darkness, so perhaps there's going to be a connection between the Noxus people and the Lunari. This would explain why the term is given to these people by the Rakor in specific, and why LeBlanc says they dwelt beyond the sun's light. But that's just a theory for now.
I am not looking for counsel. If I wanted a second opinion, I would simply ask myself. I have a unique view of this world. Several hundred of them, in fact. My greatest strength is that there are so many of us.
These quotes, and the ones I'll show after, are referencing the fact that LeBlanc is controlling multiple people, or as clones of herself pretending to be those people.
I am everywhere. I am everyone.
This one is the same as one of her level up quotes in LOR.
I am everywhere. I am everyone.
I am a sisterhood of one. I shall consult with my sisters and return.
Sisterhood and sisters are terms LeBlanc used in Arcane when talking to Mel. Speaking of which, let's check out LeBlanc's interactions with her.
Clearly you did not learn from your mother's failings.
This one is for when LeBlanc kills Mel in-game, referencing how just like Ambessa, Mel failed to stop her.
Mel, your mother promised you the world, but I will give you eternity. Your power grows, Mel. Let me help you unlock your true potential.
These are referencing the events of Arcane, where LeBlanc tried to recruit Mel to the Black Rose.
I'll tear your family's name from the histories, Medarda.
And here we see that LeBlanc still wants revenge from what the Medarda did to her. And since we are on that topic, we also have these two voice lines targeted at Ambessa.
Sons, daughters, legacies. I'll take whatever you have, Ambessa. Ambessa Medarda, you owe a debt that cannot be paid with gold.
That is a term LeBlanc used when speaking to Ambessa in Arcane. If you read the Ambessa novel, you already know the history of her beef with LeBlanc. If not, I won't spoil it here, but I plan on making a video about it in the future.
Still looking for a throne, Ambessa? I fear that ship has long since sailed.
This one is a reference to the novel, as the main goal of Ambessa there was to be the leader of her family. She saw herself sitting on a throne in the vision Kindred gave to her before she had Mel. We saw this in the music video as well. The ship sailing might be a reference to how she sent Mel to Piltover, but I'm not sure.
My regards to the wolf.
And here's a proper reference to the Kindred. Again, there's the vision they gave Ambessa in the music video, but also the wolf metaphor is one she uses quite often.
Remember who it is you serve.
And now let's check out some of her interactions with other champions and factions. Starting with this one directed at Black Rose champions, LeBlanc is the leader of the Cabal, so obviously they all serve her.
Look inside yourself, child of Noxus, and you will see me staring back.
This is likely referencing what we saw in her cinematic, how the way Noxians perceive themselves, their history and their legacy has all been part of LeBlanc's plan as she manipulated things from the shadows for centuries.
I have bound and banished more of your kind than I care to remember.
This is not surprising considering what we saw in Atakan's comic, and also how the Black Rose was responsible for Annie's mother being tied to a demon of fire.
Know your place, demon. This was not part of the plan.
These interactions with Atakan make sense, since she was one of the mages that brought Atakan back to Mordekaiser during his second reign, and centuries later she was the one that brought him back once again. Also, Atakan was first seen as one of LeBlanc's in-game followers in LOR, and the second quote is also an interaction she has with him in that game.
This was not part of the plan.
Your time has run out, deceiver.
There is nothing more catastrophic to a kingdom than an empty throne. Ah, the young prince. You have your father's eyes.
These interactions with Jarvan seem to mostly just reference how the Rose was pleased with his father's death. There's even an interaction in LOR about it, and the Rose messing with Demacia is nothing new, both in the old lore and in a new one, like how recently we learned that the Rose was behind the death of Jarvan's ancestor, and how LeBlanc tried to kill Garen in his novella. However, telling someone they have their father's eyes implies you knew their father very well, which leads us to this line.
Tell me, Jarvan, what do you remember of your mother?
Jarvan's mother died while giving birth to him. From what I've seen online, everybody is wondering if this means LeBlanc was Jarvan's mother, or at least if his mother was a member of the Rose, and honestly, that doesn't sound impossible. However, if that's the case, why did they let her die? Was it because she had fulfilled her purpose, giving birth to Jarvan, or was her death simply not planned? I think perhaps the simplest explanation here is that the Black Rose was behind her death. Maybe they wanted her to die before giving birth, but failed. And maybe the line about the eyes was just LeBlanc taunting Jarvan because his father died. However, I won't deny that the possibility of LeBlanc being connected to Jarvan is indeed interesting, and would put into perspective their interactions in LOR.
Usurper! You have ruined 10 centuries of work!
Now we have her interactions with Swain. She calls him usurper because he killed the previous Grand General of Noxus, which was under the influence of the Rose. She defeated Mordekaiser about 10 centuries ago, hence the 10 centuries of work here, and Swain ruined them because he has been trying to diminish the Rose's influence on Noxus.
Such ambition, Jericho. Such arrogance. I can work with that. You showed such promise, Jericho Swain. What a waste.
These quotes might be referencing how Swain and LeBlanc can be useful to one another. They're enemies, but sometimes their goals align.
The people of Noxus see only their Grand General, but I know who is really in control.
I wonder if here she's talking about herself, as in she's the one that's really in control of Noxus, or if she's talking about the demon, hinting that Rom might be influencing Swain.
The greatest threat to Noxus lies within this upstart Trifarix.
And since we're talking about Swain, here's a quote about the Trifarix Council, which was inspired by the Trifarix, the 3 principles of strength from Noxian culture: vision, might, and guile. Again, she sees it as a threat to Noxus because they are a threat to the Rose, and the Rose is trying to defeat the greater evil.
Who is caught in whose web, I wonder? This betrayal is disappointing, sister, but not unexpected.
These two are for when she sees Elise being a member of the Rose. She's not surprised about the betrayal because, honestly, she has probably experienced that a lot throughout her life.
And where is your god now, Elise, what news from the Shadow Isles? What does the Vilemore see?
And here we get 2 references to Elise's god, Valmont, which you might remember as the epic monster from the Twisted Tree-line map. Bringing information and artifacts from the Shadow Isles is part of Elise's role in the Black Rose. In exchange, the Cabal provides offerings to her god.
You have something that belongs to me, Rune Mage. Ryze, you know what happens to those who walk away from the Black Rose. Tyrus was right about you.
And now we have these 3 interactions with Ryze which are so interesting. The implication here being that Tyrus and Ryze had some connection to the Black Rose at some point, and that Ryze took something from them. As you may or may not know, Tyrus and Ryze were members of an order from the Blessed Isles. This order kept powerful artifacts hidden from dangerous hands, and they also collected a lot of knowledge in general, at least until the ruination happened. As I mentioned when I talked about Elise, the Rose is interested in the Shadow Isles, though we never quite learned why that was the case. One can assume it's because of the death magic there, or the ancient knowledge, or the powerful artifacts, though we do know that there's a rumor about Mordekaiser's skull being hidden there, so that might be what they want. Regardless, in the Ruination novel, after the Ruination happens, Tyrus and Ryze, alongside the Sentinels of Light, patrol the Isles making sure no outsiders get harmed, or loot the powerful artifacts that are still there. One of these outsiders turned out to be a woman, who spoke of how her mistress had sent her to the Isles to investigate the powerful magic she sensed there. The novel implies that Tyrus and Ryze know who this mistress is, and if it wasn't obvious, yes, I think it's LeBlanc. There's actually even more connections between Ryze and the Rose, so I honestly might just make a video about it. Let me know down below if that's something you wanna see.
Katarina, still looking for father figures to disappoint?
This quote against Katarina is likely referencing how in her story, her father sent her on a mission to assassinate a target, but instead she went for another one she thought was more important, which backfired and led to the death of her father's soldiers and almost to his own as well. And later Katarina would join Swain and fight her own father. Katarina disappointed her father, and LeBlanc is saying that now she's looking for another father figure, Swain, to disappoint as well.
So predictable. Just like your mother.
Her mother is a member of the Rose.
The Couteau name is worthless, boy. Aim higher.
While Katarina's story sees her going against her family, Talon's is the opposite, standing on the side of his adopted father.
Well, your sisters will be upset by that, no doubt.
Talon's sisters being Katarina and Cassiopeia.
Cassiopeia, you have sacrificed much for our cause. How much more are you willing to risk?
Cassiopeia's mother was the one that instructed her to find the Chalicar and bring it to the Rose. As you may know, this would lead to Cassiopeia getting cursed and transforming into the half-snake that she is now. The Chalicar was the weapon used to kill or capture the Darkin. Speaking of which...
I have been warned against your kind, fallen one. You were the ones who brought the world to its knees. That seems unlikely.
These quotes mostly just tell us that LeBlanc was born after the Darkin Wars, which means she was born somewhere between that and the second reign of Mordekaiser.
Almost too easy. Perhaps you're not the weapon I seek after all.
However, her most interesting interaction with the Darkin is this one, where she reveals she's looking for them to use them as a weapon. So yes, I guess everyone was right to assume that the symbol we saw in the cinematic was indeed a Darkin weapon. This explains why Vladimir was nervous. He was enslaved by a Darkin once before he managed to kill them and steal their blood magic. In the new minigame we get confirmation that LeBlanc is looking for a specific Darkin weapon, a glaive. Why is she looking for it though? Well, all of her plans seem to revolve around finding a way to defeat Mordekaiser for good, so that's my best guess. We don't know where the story is headed, but I'm sure we'll learn soon. Hell, maybe even her interest in Vladimir was tied to this from the very beginning. Who knows? Since we're talking about Vlad, here are her interactions with him.
Hemomancer, please. I grow weary of you, Vladimir. You should remedy that. Must we do this again, Vladimir?
We know that they don't always agree and that Vladimir might want to cut his ties with the Rose at some point, so these quotes aren't surprising.
Immortal. And already outliving your usefulness.
LeBlanc choosing Vladimir for his usefulness is anything but surprising. But again, this might circle back to what I said earlier about her choosing him in specific because of his ties to the Darkin.
You must be another of Vladimir's revolting experiments. Pitiful creature.
And here we learn that she's not too fond of the experiments Vladimir does.
It pains me to see you like this, Scion. You deserved better.
LeBlanc feeling pity towards Swain feels unexpected. I'm guessing it's because, again, she doesn't like Vladimir's experiments. Or maybe it's because she's not a fan of bringing people back to life because of her past with Mordekaiser. Speaking of which...
I ended you once, you bastard. I will do it again. You are only here because I permit it, Revenant. Remember that. How many times must I destroy you, Revenant?
You can see how her tone shifts when addressing him. He is her main enemy, the one guy she's been trying to stop for so long. And since we're talking about Mordekaiser, might as well segue to other quotes related to him.
Nothing burns as hot as the need for vengeance, especially when it has been stoked for centuries.
Like this one about how she's been plotting her vengeance for centuries.
Do not trust someone who has never lost everything they care about. They speak so casually of tyranny and oppression. They do not know what I have endured.
And here we have two quotes about what she went through while she served Mordekaiser. I really hope we learn more about this period of her life.
My former master believed in destiny, domination, and deceit. Failing to realize the last would be his downfall.
Destiny, domination, and deceit were Mord's principles, and they found their way into modern Noxus as vision, might, and guile. Deceit was what led to Mordekaiser's fall, as LeBlanc served him before betraying him.
Vision, might, guile. It's almost comical how history repeats itself.
Again, vision, might, and guile are a distilled version of Mordekaiser's principles, now being used by the rulers of Noxus as each of them represents one of these principles.
I never asked for any of this. But I won't go back. Not now.
If I must become the whole world's villain, then so be it.
These two are referencing how everything she does is to protect the world from Mordekaiser. She didn't ask for this role, but she will keep playing her part even if that makes her the villain. Not too far from Lysandra's role in the Freljord, manipulating history and working behind the scenes to stop a greater evil.
You have doomed us all.
And obviously, if she's trying to stop a greater evil, her death would mean doom for everyone else.
A tasteless homage to an unworthy role model, Vagar.
This quote is referencing how Mordekaiser once enslaved Vhagar so he could get his knowledge of Yordles and their magic. It was because of his time as Mordekaiser's slave that Vhagar became the villain, quote-unquote, that he is today.
Sleep now, little one. I will not give up on you.
This quote is actually triggered when she kills Vhagar. Both LeBlanc and Vhagar were own slaves to Mordekaiser, so it's not surprising she feels empathy toward him. Now, let's see other details and references.
I took a rabble of barbarians and whispered to them dreams of empire. And look at them now. Insatiable. Unstoppable.
First, this line is almost the same as one she says in her newest cinematic.
I took a rabble of barbarians and whispered to them dreams of empire. And look at them now, ready to die for an illusion. Unforeseen turns are simply part of any path.
And this one is from the new season cinematic.
Unforeseen turns are simply part of any path.
My knowledge of the arcane is unrivaled.
How does eternity in a sunless pit sound?
I think this one is either referencing the Well of Souls under the Immortal Bastion or Mel's magic prison from Arcane.
Until you have witnessed both the beginning and the end of an era, your desultory opinions matter very little to me.
She's basically saying that if you aren't as old as her, your opinion doesn't matter to her.
They call me cruel. Indeed, from a mouse's perspective, even a lazy cat may be evil incarnate.
She's comparing herself to a lazy cat, which a mouse will still see as evil. In other words, she's saying that there are bigger evils than her, but those who don't know better can't tell the difference.
The pale woman is naught but a reflection of a people's deepest fears and insecurities.
Pale Woman, Pale Lady, and Pale Sorceress are all names people used to call LeBlanc, as she's pretty much a legend at this point. Here she says the term and the legends come from people fearing her.
A strange place to set up shop. And 2 merchants here, no less.
This is a meta joke, the place is strange, and there are 2 shopkeepers because, well, she's in the video game. Now here are some other voice lines from LOR.
History forgets, but the Black Rose remembers.
History forgets, but the Black Rose remembers.
The best lies are beautiful.
The best lies are beautiful.
And finally, here are some references to her old voice lines.
Smoke and mirrors. Shadow and steel.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Watch closely.
Watch closely.
Go ahead. Try to escape.
There's no escape.
Right where I want you.
Right where I want them.
Surprised to see me?
Surprised to see me?
Tricky, aren't you?
Tricky, aren't you?
Looks can be deceiving.
Looks can be deceiving.
And that was it for LeBlanc's new voice lines. Let me know down below if I missed anything. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, it's free and you can always change your mind later. Now, if you excuse me, I have a mini game to play.